Hi, this is Scott Bradfield. Got a lot of horses running around here. And this is, if you haven't guessed already, the first special pre-Christmas edition of Being in the Bathtub with Books. And we're going to discuss a few things about taking some books to the bathtub for Christmas and to send books to people you know who might enjoy them in the bathtub, because that's basically what our mission in life is to do, is to spend an hour a day not thinking about what a fucking messed up world it is, and to just read something we like. And we don't need to pronounce the names of the authors very well, so I'll say Nabokov anytime I goddamn feel like it. And we don't need to pass exams at the end of the day. And no one has to. You don't need to show off to anybody that you're reading a new book or book. These are books you read privately in the bathtub. Nobody needs to know about it but you. Okay, so I wanted to say I've developed a few pointless theories of reading in the bathtub over Christmas, and some of the things I would suggest. For example, I think it's very important at Christmas. Well, I'm gonna do a special bathtub edition here. I'm gonna change my. I put some lights up, so we have some Christmas lights. And I can't find my pillow, so I'm gonna use this one. Everything's full. Everything's going to hell in the bathtub today. And there we go. I want to sit up taller. Okay. So one of the things I started to say was we should leave our Kindle on the shelf at Christmas. There's something I like Kindles. They're very handy. But at Christmas, you really shouldn't be reading on a Kindle. And I'll make the argument that, and here's our festive Christmas candle. We'll be doing a couple of these, so I thought I'd try to get out all the big guns of special effects for my channel. So you should leave the Kindle, put it away, unplug it for the Christmas. There's something nice about having the actual book is an experience and a memory. That's one of the reasons why we don't get rid of all these books, is because they hold a lot of memories for us. And hold on a second. And you want to have those books they develop a texture and a feel. They absorb time when you hold on to them, and they absorb your experiences, and they reflect the time you read them. And then when you reread them, they're like old friends in a way. So these are books that you could read in the bathtub if you have time over the Christmas. And at Christmas, maybe you have more time. You might have a week or so away from work. In Europe, you might even have a couple of weeks off. And this is a good way to get away from those endless family holidays. You can go hide in the bathtub for an hour or two every day. And you also have more time to sit and soak, because hopefully everyone else is doing the dishes and doing the cooking, and you can just sit in the goddamn tub with your book. You can bring your candles in, this candle here, and there's a couple other things. So don't read Kindles in the bathtub, because the memories are just translucent. They just dissipate when you get rid of this piece of equipment. And try to stick with books, solid books that you can reread. Like I read this one a few times over the years. And I had a great Christmas memories of 2 or 3 years ago now, when one of my last Christmases in London, when we read this. I read this in the bathtub over about a week or two. And War and Peace by Tolstoy is one of those, or Tolstoy, as I like to say, Tolstoy. As Tolstoy was, he's one of those great, serious writers who is just a great pleasure to read. And War and Peace is really good for Christmas because there's actually a lot of good Christmas scenes in it, in the peace sections. It's very long, as you can see, but you want to try to go for the mass market paperback edition. This is my other philosophy. Really, literature should be in mass market paperback editions that you can carry around in your purse. They're not these big, ugly things. This is what you should be reading. A nice small book that is as small as you can make, 1,500 pages. And these old Signet editions still in print. So I would really recommend that for any of your friends or family who you would like to send to the bathtub over Christmas. Once you start it, you're not going to be able to stop. It's a lovely novel. I personally believe that it would be better if they cut the war parts out. The war parts are kind of boring, I think. But the peace stuff and the stuff at home and the Natasha character and Pierre and all the families and there's some wonderful Christmas scenes in it. It's just a beautiful, lovely, emotional book. And while we're at it, a little darker, but probably a better book because we don't have those kind of long war sections. Anna Karenina, again, mass market size paperback. Really kind of sit in the bathtub for a while with this sucker, and you read it, you will start this. It's one of the few classics of literature that you will start it and you won't know you're reading literature, and then you know you're in good hands. And you can say Karenina, you can call her Karenina, you can call her anything you goddamn please in the bathtub. And if anyone tells you otherwise, you send them to me. Okay, don't listen to anybody. Okay, so those are two of my favorite memories of the past. I mean, this was many years ago. I read this over Christmas, and this was recent War and Peace, which is just a great book. Um, One of the perfect Christmas books is almost any of the late Dickens novels. You can't go wrong with Dickens at Christmas. The early Dickens novels, which many people love, and they are good, but I don't go back to things like Pickwick Papers or Martin Chuzzlewit. Most of us tend to read The Christmas Carol, but it's on all the time. You don't need to see that thing again. You really should read one of these late novels, which are so much better. David Copperfield is my favorite Dickens novel. It's perfect for Christmas. I think it has some Christmas scenes in it. I don't remember, but it's such a beautiful book. And here's a night you really should shoot for the. This is where you don't want the signated editions because they don't have the original illustrations. You want to get some of these old mass market sized paperbacks from Penguin because they have the original illustrations in them. And this is where you really, it's one of the frustrating things about don't look for the signated editions of Dickens. They don't have the illustrations in them, whereas these do, and they're lovely books to keep for a lifetime, really, any of these. So I would recommend David Copperfield for you or your friends and family. Anyone's a big reader at Christmas. The other one, which is a great book, is Bleak House. And I've read this many times over the years, never at Christmas, but it's just an extraordinary, lovely, powerful book. And you can't put it down once you start it. Once you get used to there's a teeter-totter narrative in it, but it's a great piece of writing. And some people hate Esther Summerson, but I'm a sucker for Esther Summerson, so don't tell anybody. Two more books I read. I think was in the past few years at Christmas. I read for the first time Titus Groan, the first volume of the Gormenghast trilogy by Mervyn Peake. Now I'd never read Mervyn Peake before. I'd heard great things about him. It's a really peculiar and interesting book and kind of perfect for Christmas. It's mislabeled in a way a fantasy novel. It takes place in this kind of monstrous, almost planet-sized castle. And there's all sorts of weird adventures. And the prose is really odd and powerful in the same way. And I really enjoyed it and found that the last 50, 100 pages kind of lost my interest for various reasons. But I may have missed something. Christmas, we get distracted. But I really enjoyed this at Christmas, and I would someday like to read the whole trilogy at Christmas. Christmas is a great time to read that fantasy trilogy, that you've had on the shelf forever and you never read. The other one that's perfect, which I don't have out here for us today, is of course the Her Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. I might do another one of these and talk about that. Finally, just as a warning, my least pleasurable Christmas reading experience of the past 8 to 10 years was Don Quixote. I read this again 3 or 4 years ago, one of the last Christmases in London, and I had read it I read it for my PhD exams 30 million years ago, and was so busy trying to study that I couldn't really enjoy it under any circumstances. I always thought I missed something. I hear so many people say, it's a great book, and it means so much to them, and influenced them so much as writers, and blah, blah. So a few Christmases ago, I sat down in the bathtub with this sucker, and the first 30 or 40 pages or 50 pages I kind of liked, and I got pretty tedious after a while, and about halfway through it, I think halfway through, Cervantes finishes one book, and then he goes back and writes a sequel or something. It's just, it was a weight. It was really a weight on my back reading this book. And I should have done what I tell my students, which is I should have stopped reading it halfway through. I don't know. I don't get it. Don't explain it to me why I'm missing something, because I just don't care. I'm never going to read it again. Don Quixote was a goddamn boring book. So anyway, that's just a little brief. There's a Christmassy sort of thing here. And I'll try to get a hat or something for the next one. And I thought over the next few weeks, we'll do maybe another one of these, just kind of general roundup of Christmas books to read, and then maybe one or two more focused on a couple of individual writers who I find interesting lately and who also are good to read over the holidays when it's dark and a little tenebrous outside, or tenebrous, as I like to say. Okay, you guys have a great week. Spend a lot of time in the bathtub, and get yourself one nice book that you can just read. Okay, and as soon as your holidays start, go have a nice break. Okay, all right. I'll see you later. Bye.